ring if you're ready to care. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only WETOODEEP. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seat. This is slapping me, yes, slapping me.
What is good, everybody? It is your boy WETOODEEP, and we are back with another episode of the Slapping Meat Community Show. And this is episode 300. Already messing up. Episode 323. Which is crazy, by the way. Like, crazy. We're about to finish up the end of what would make 4 different years, you could say, of podcasting. 2021, 2022, 2022, 2023, 2024, and now we're about to end 2025. Granted, 2022 was only about half a year, but what that means is the 4th annual end of the year awards show is around the corner. And this year we're going to debut the Slappies, the Slappy Awards. That's what we're going to call them going forward from here on out. This year we're going to tone it back, right? From what is typically, happening on that show. The last two years we did it, last year was the largest amount of people we've ever had do an end of the year award show. We had me, we had Wavy D, we had Nerdy D, we had Steel Chair Twan, we had James, we had Cody, right? And I had fun. It was fun to see the different perspectives around the different awards. This year we're gonna we're gonna tone it back a little bit. And it's, the first year I did it, it was just me, I believe. The second year was me, James, and Cody. Year 3, I lied, because year 3 was last year. I don't remember how long I've been doing it. Look, I'm all over the place. I think I got a cold. I'm on NyQuil. I might pass out recording this, and have a lot of editing to do. Who knows? So you're going to have to work through that cough, because I've had to work through it all day. I know it's annoying. I wish I could help it. Anyway, it's going to be me, James, and Cody. That's what I was trying to get to all along. It's going to be me, James, and Cody, because I do still want a dialogue on the different awards. I don't just want that show to be, here's WETOODEEP's favorite of the year, because, right, I do want to have a conversation around it. That show is going to more than likely be a live stream, 9 p.m. If it does go live, it'll be 9 p.m. Tuesday, December the 16th. Card subject to change. No, I'm kidding. But we got some good questions, some good different awards we're going to hand out, some new ones. I mean, I've already announced the categories on the Discord, if you guys want to go back and take a look at them. The only thing that I hadn't put on there was something fun that we're going to do with James and Cody to start the show. I'm going to have them do a sort of icebreaker type game as we start the live stream. So definitely tune in for that. And, If you can, tune in live. If not, you can tune in afterwards. There will be video for that one. That'll be on the WETOODEEP Entertainment YouTube channel, which should be in the description. Anyway, now that we're 5 minutes into this, and I've gone off the rails in the beginning of this, let's actually go in the ropes and talk about some wrestling-related topics. And, here recently, we've only had like 1 or 2 a week, right? We got some wrestling to talk about. Some things that have happened over the last week and a half since the last episode that I definitely want to mention and discuss. So the first thing that I want to talk about is this rumor going around that SmackDown on Friday nights is going to go back to a 3-hour time slot starting in January. Excuse me. Starting in January. And I don't watch SmackDown to begin with, right? You gonna damn sure not gonna have me watching 3 hours of that show. We already know how I feel about 3-hour time slots. My question is why, and I think I found out why. This is the theory, at least, and it makes sense to me. Following SmackDown now is Braun Strowman's food review show or whatever, right? And that show is scheduled to end at the end of December, right? And so essentially the network has been pairing WWE and that together, SmackDown and the Braun Strowman show, hoping the idea being you can draw in the wrestling fans to stay and watch Braun Strowman. And it's worked. They've had some strong ratings for that show. So I think the idea is well, obviously the wrestling fans are staying, so we can just add that 3rd hour back, right? It's essentially what I'm going to assume is their mindset. That's the only thing I can really think of. And I'm not a big fan of a 3-hour wrestling show. I know they're coming back to Charlotte for SmackDown, and I've already was like, I don't know if I want to pay that amount to go and watch SmackDown. But I definitely don't want to pay that amount to go watch SmackDown and have 3 hours of television to watch. With that being said about me going to shows, they're going to be doing a live show for NXT, a house show in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm going to be sitting front row. I was trying to get stage, the seats by the stage. Those were already taken by the time I got on. But we did get front row seats for this house show. Cost, I'll be honest with you, it was a little pricey. $190 after taxes and fees is a little pricey for a house show NXT. I get it, right? Here's my justification. It's my favorite product. They hardly ever tour, and I think that's part of the appeal with this and why the prices are a little bit higher. This is a product that doesn't tour that often, right? The NXT brand doesn't tour all that often as a house show, right? And this isn't going to be the Florida house shows that they've been doing throughout the week, where it's your developmental talent. They need them a place to wrestle. This is going to be your on-TV talent. If it's going to continue to be the way they've been doing it, like they did in Chicago and Green Bay, and had Oba and stuff, right? So the it's also the Friday before Saturday night's main event. So part of me is hoping that it's not going to happen, but part of me is sort of wondering, is John Cena going to be there? Potentially, with Saturday night's main event being a exhibition style type show where he said, which I want to talk about that for a second. John Cena essentially went to Triple H and said, I don't want this final show to be just about me, because one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to do too much and the fans aren't going to like it, or you're going to not do enough and the fans aren't going to like it. And so you're not going to please them no matter which way you go. So how about we do this? And let's do the best on the main roster versus the best in NXT. I love this. This is the type of thing where, even if Cena wins his last match, right? Even if Cena wins that and then sort of vacates the title or whatever, right? Even if Cena wins, I think he's going to lose the title at War Games. I think he's fighting Dom in a rematch, right? I think Dom's going to win it back. And Cena's last match is going to be with no title on the line. Now, a lot of people think it could be Gunther. That's my best bet, is that it's going to be Gunther. I would prefer for it to be someone else. But a lot of people think it's going to be Gunther. Which is fine. But I just want to say, we've seen some of these bigger stars in our generation. Goldberg, right? Now, Goldberg went down to Gunther on the mat, and I'll praise Goldberg for that. Imagine the year this would be, 2025, if Gunther is the one that retired Goldberg and John Cena. Right? That's the type of level of caliber. And first off, Gunther's got that Ring General NXT UK theme back. I saw the clip of him from Monday, and he's got his old, really good, like the Imperium NXT UK, Dominate NXT UK type. He's got that theme back. We're about to get a side of Gunther. I don't think the main roster is ready for. I think we're about to get the Gunther that I've been telling the casuals that this guy's the best wrestler on the planet. Right? Here's the thing about wrestling right now. Here's what's getting me excited, right? As we're heading into, there's part of me who really is considering downloading this ESPN app and paying for the first month to watch Survivor Series. Because what I'm hoping is by the time we get to Royal Rumble, YouTube TV's got this deal worked out. So that's another thing that has happened. YouTube TV, we were, and ESPN and all of them, part of the deal that they finally made to give us the ESPN channels back on YouTube TV is that YouTube TV and ESPN, like that essentially the access to the ESPN standalone app. I don't know all the details. I don't know if it's going to be a channel on YouTube TV. I don't know if it's going to be a package, like a sports package through YouTube TV, or what exactly it's going to be, but it's going to allow us to get live content. And so what I'm hoping is by the time we get to Royal Rumble, by the time we get to WrestleMania, that happens, and I could start really paying attention to the product again. Part of me is getting very interesting as the superstars that I enjoy to watch, as they're coming back into play. Dragunov is back. Gunther is back. Excuse me. Stephanie Vaquer is there. She never left, but she's on the main roster, right? And so some of the wrestlers, these wrestlers that I really like, Brock Lesnar. I know that's controversial in today's IWC, but you put Lesnar and Roman in a ring against each other, and that to me, that's the feud of the century. I said that and got some laughs in a couple group chats that I'm in. People were laughing at me for saying that, but I genuinely believe over the last decade, over the last 10 years, 2015 to 2025, the best feud of that decade has been Roman and Brock. We had SummerSlam with the tractor. We had the whole Bloodline era with it. Like this thing right here, that feud is what really brought the mainstream fans back to wrestling, especially over the last 4 to 5 years, right? The last half of the decade with the Bloodline stuff, right? And so this War Games match looks hella entertaining. Right? Both of these War Games matches look like they're going to be good. Like, part of me is tempted to definitely tune in live and not scalp this one, right? That's next weekend. So we shall see. But with that being said, the next thing that I want to talk about, I don't know, did I finish that thought? I told you I'm all over the place. But anyway, let me finish that. Props to Cena. He's probably going to go out on his shoulders, and in the same time, he's going to go out putting the future of the company over. Whether it's Gunther, whether it's the NXT guys and gals, it's something that like Edge. When Edge had the show in Toronto, he got to have his match. He got to go out how he wanted to out of WWE, and he didn't put over anyone. He had to be the star of the show, and look, I'm all fine with him doing that, but you can definitely tell, that Cena cares a little bit more, in my opinion, about the business than a lot of some of these vets who think that it's all about them, right? And they want to put the next round of superstars over. I think the way he wants to do this is I think he really deeply, when it comes down to it, deeply cares about wrestling and the business and all of it, right? And so props to Cena for that. Next big thing, let's go ahead and talk about TNA's rumor to potentially get a TV deal with the AMC channel. I would like this because I actually get it on YouTube TV. It'll be a good deal. There's a lot of audience there. It's a major channel, I believe. I think a lot of the streaming companies and stuff have it. And so it definitely would be a big opportunity, I think, for them to showcase their ability and their programming. So I just wanted to mention that. Not really much of an opinion on it. Anything's better than Access TV. Let's just be honest, right? Next big thing is, let's talk about PWI. It's about that time of year where PWI just dropped their top 250 women, and I typically don't necessarily care about discussing these rankings, but I have an issue with the list in and of itself, right? The whole 250, right? Now, most of these women, I don't know who they are. A lot of them are indie women, right? But first thing I think needs to be understood, because a lot of the IWC is complaining about this list, and they're complaining because, so-and-so is too low, and why is so-and-so this, why is so-and-so this, and they're looking at it from an in-ring perspective. What I need for people to realize is that PWI tries to do kayfabe style rankings, meaning how you perform on as the show, right? It's not who can do the best moves, who has the best move set, who's the most popular. It's kayfabed to where who has the most titles, who had the best title reign, what's your record, right? It tries to play it out as if it's a real sport, and I do have some issue with that type of ranking, because you end up in that situation with someone like Mercedes Moné being number one because she has 13 championships. But she hardly ever defends them, and I think that she's not number. Now I'm not going to say she, even from a kayfabe perspective, I don't think she's number one. Right? Some big names on this list: Tiffany Stratton with her 300+ day reign ends up number 4. Stephanie Vaquer had a fantastic year. To me, she's number 1. She ends up number 5 on this list. Someone like Liv Morgan, who I thought held her own this year, ends up number 12. Did a good job. Lyra Valkyrie is 15, which was kind of interesting. Julia ends up 21. Roxanne Perez ends up 22. Sol Ruka 23. As we're scrolling through, some of these, so someone like a Selena Vega ends up 39th, which is kind of surprising to me that she's that high. To me, Bianca being 56 is way too low. Jade Cargill being 53 is way too low. I understand Bianca because she's missed a large portion of this year. But even still, I think Bianca was... I'm kind of giving away an answer. Hopefully you guys maybe forget about it. I don't know if I put this on the list, to be honest with you. But like match of the year, Bianca was part of it, right? I believe Bianca was part of the match of the year, in my opinion. It's not on the... It's not there. So we got to add it. Glad I mentioned it. But I don't, to me, as a more casual fan, not the most casual of casuals, but I don't put a lot of stock in this type of list, right? Because it's highly gimmicked, it's highly... I don't want to say rigged, but it's highly subjective, and it's really difficult for me to be like, oh yeah, this makes sense. I know they're trying to be as objective as possible, but even still, like, okay, Mercedes Moné is practically undefeated, but she hardly ever wrestled. She hardly defended her title. Sure, she's had some decent matches, and she's had some bigger name opponents that she faced, like Momo. But, like, someone to me, like, I don't know who Momo Watanabe is. So if I was doing this ranking and we did, like, a slapping meat community ranking, the women, right? I saw Mercedes Moné, and I went through her list of wrestlers that she fought. Alex Windsor, was it Persephone, and CMLL, Thekla, Momo. Like, if you would have gone through all of these opponents, I'd be like, well, I don't know any of these. And so I think it's very difficult when you mix the mainstream with the indie, and it's really difficult to have an objective list. Even though they kayfabe the list, it's still very, very, especially as you get towards the bottom of the list, like, who's sitting there and watching every single women's independent show match and keeping record of who gets, what's the difference between 251 and 250, like, and who makes the cut, right? And so it's such an interesting list. especially to be so big. Like, is there really 250 women? And the people are going to take this the wrong way. But are there really 250 women in pro wrestling that are worth saying, well, you're the top? Right? Because once you start going down the list, like, all I really need to know is who's number one. Who do you think one is? Maybe we can argue top 10. Maybe we can argue top 50. But once you get past 50, right, now you're starting to get into the small percentages, and I just don't really necessarily care about all of that. Same thing with the men's. They do a men's top 500, and even still with that, like, is there 500 male wrestlers on the planet that I'm really arguing about? Oh, so-and-so, if all he has to do is he's 301, this guy's 304, and this, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's just, who really cares, right? Excuse me. Next thing that I want to talk about that's sort of newsworthy or opinionated, is, so Blood and Guts ran, not last night. I'm recording this November 20th. So it wasn't the 19th. It was the 12th. November 12th was Blood and Guts. And I had a thought over the last week and a half of, it was weird to me that Tony waited so long to run Blood and Guts, because they typically run it in the spring or the summer, right? May, June, July-ish, that area, right? And then I sat here and I thought about it. I was like, well, I actually like that. I like that. Here's what I think Tony Khan did. And maybe I'm prescribing motive that's not there, but I'm going to actually be on Tony Khan's side for a minute. Running Blood and Guts, which is essentially a War Games match, the same month, quite literally a week, two and a half weeks before War Games, allows for enough recency bias to come in for the AEW fans to come in and be like, oh, well, we had better Blood and Guts match than you guys had War Games match, right? I think it's great marketing. I think it's great strategy from Tony Khan. I think he played the game very well. I think Tony Khan over the last month has done two major things that are really good PR. He ran Blood and Guts, whether or not you cared about Chris Statlander, taking some nails through her back and almost had one go through the back of her head, from what I understand, or seeing Sky Blue all bloodied, or all of that. Whether you don't have to enjoy that, but it's something to talk about when you have War Games coming, and as the AEW drone army, the bot army of AEW at the end of these War Games matches can be like, man, 2.5 weeks ago Tony ran a better show than what War Games was, right? It's very good strategy because of the recency bias, because no one's going to care if you run the show in May and then in November they run War Games. And if for someone to say, oh, well, we ran a better Blood and Guts back in May, well, no one's going to care. No one's going to remember. So you have the recency bias of, well, AEW just ran better cage matches of this same style 2.5 weeks ago, right? So I'm giving Tony props here. I'm giving Tony props. It's not the end of the world, I promise. It's not the NyQuil that's making me drunk. I have not been drinking, but I'm going to give Tony props here. Very good strategy, very good booking decision. The second thing he's done over the last month happened this week. If you have Raj Giri and Disco Inferno praising your PR work, you did a good thing, Tony. He went on Ariel Helwani on Tuesday. I haven't listened to the interview. I heard he said some silly things, but his actual PR work, the answering of questions, he seemed, from what Disco said and what Raj Giri said, he seemed professional. And so Tony may be learning from past mistakes and may actually be trying to make the business side of it look genuine, not like a clown show. So that's a good thing. I'll give Tony some props. He's done some good things this month. All right, last two things in between the ropes here. So the first one is Dolph Ziggler appeared for what probably is going to be a one-off. Zack Ryder came out last Friday. Dolph Ziggler showed up on Monday to enter the John Cena tournament to see who's going to be the last opponent. So Dolph Ziggler came in, and let me tell you, this pop was one of the loudest pops I've heard in a while on a WWE product. And so I got to thinking again after watching this on X of, can I say this definitely? And I'm going to say this without any hesitation, 100% certain on this. Dolph Ziggler is the biggest fumble of the last decade from Vince McMahon. The fact that Vince McMahon only gave this man one title run, one world title run, which wasn't, the run itself wasn't all that good. The cash-in to me is still the best cash-in in Money in the Bank history in terms of reaction. But the fact that this man was essentially just a jobber his entire career in the mid-card. And I have nothing against people staying in the mid-card. Where I have an issue is Dolph Ziggler was obviously, and still is to this day, a fan favorite. Right? He was my favorite wrestler until he was released from WWE. From the minute I came back to watching wrestling, late 2013, very early 2014, that time period, till the day Dolph Ziggler got released from WWE, he was my favorite wrestler in the company. Every time he was on the television, he was cutting a banger promo or putting on a banger match. Right? Dolph Ziggler should have been a multi-time world champion. I 100% believe he's one of the biggest fumbles in Vince McMahon's whole career. And there have been plenty of those. But I'm going to say he is the biggest in the last decade. That Vince McMahon, while he ran the WWE, did not push. And this pop proved it. When his music played, right? And again, I watched this on X, right? When I'm here to show the world, I'm here to show the world. When that played, I got some goosebumps, right? The crowd popped. It was loud, right? I got some goosebumps, right? What a moment. What an opponent for Solo to put over. One final job. Now, I'm happy with that decision. I know there's a lot of people that were like, Ziggler should have gone over, or Ziggler should have won. I don't believe that. I think Solo winning makes a lot of sense. And so, that pop proved to me that Ziggler was a major fumble from Vince McMahon, right? And then the last thing is going to come from this past Tuesday. And I wrote this in my notes. It says, Shawn Michaels, HBK, you better count your days. And here's why. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched NXT. Go watch NXT first if you care about the product. I gave you warning. There are going to be spoilers. So, Gold Rush Week 1 started. And let me tell you, the entire show was really good. Right? I think it was fine for what it's supposed to be. I wasn't expecting a lot of title changes or anything like that. it played into what it needed to be. And then we got to this main event, right? And I had scrolled across and stumbled on accident on X an article that said that WWE's website glitched and may have given away the finals or the main event. Apparently the website glitched and they had set an article to go live for 10 p.m. and the website glitched and it went live early and people had caught it before WWE did, and it gave away that JC was winning. And part of me hoped that one of two things was going to happen. Either A, that wasn't the plan to begin with, and it was just a mistake, or someone was lying on the dirt sheets, or B, that was the original plan, and that because it went live early, they would change ship. They would change the result. And so I was sitting here watching this, cheering on Tatum like I always would, right? Tater is one of the best women in the NXT locker room. I will fight anyone tooth and nail for that. Tatum Paxley is one of the most I typically am not one of those that are like, oh, well, Tatum's not very good, right? Like, there are some people like Kofi Kingston, I'm going to be honest, like Kofi Mania, where I wasn't behind putting Kofi over as champion, even though the fans were behind him, right? Because I didn't think that I honestly just felt like at the time, like Kofi Mania would make no sense. And really, it didn't really make much sense now that we have that whole story play out, right? Or someone like Jey Uso, right? And this is a topic that was being talked about in the Discord earlier this month, a couple weeks ago. Like the fall of Jey Uso. And guys, did I not call this back in January? Right, Kara can attest that I've been saying since he started this push that he wasn't main event material. And now people are starting to get off the train. And I'm still at the station. And you're looking back now, like you guys got on the train and you rode it and you're almost at the end of the line, right? You're almost at the end of where everyone has to get off. Train's not going any further, right? And you guys are looking back at the beginning, at the first station on the track, and WETOODEEP still sitting there, but the sign's different. In January, the sign was "Don't hop on. It's just a mirage." In November, the sign is different. You got y'all who hopped on the train and are getting off the Jey Uso train now. Y'all are looking back, and WETOODEEP sitting there at the starting line at the first station, and the sign's different, and it said, "I told you so." Right? And I got people like B-Master and Kara who rode with me. Maybe got on the train a little bit, but hopped off early. I don't really know. Maybe they never got on the train. Right? But WETOODEEP, I told you this. Right? This downfall of and why did I know this was going to happen? Because there's precedent that this will happen. Between Daniel Bryan, between Kofi, Ricochet, Ali, people get behind these wrestlers, and if you give in to them, they're going to change, right? Becky Lynch comes back, gets the title a couple years ago, right? Remember? And then the fans no longer wanted her to be there, right? Or, new wrestler gets called up, she gets championship, now no one cares about her. That story's been played 100 million times. And it's one of those things. Excuse me. It's one of those things where, like, history repeats itself, and I just sort of saw that, right? So, Shawn Michaels. There's a difference, though, between that and Tatum Paxley. And that is Tatum Paxley is actually really good in the ring. She is popular with the crowd that watches NXT. I'm willing to admit that a majority of the mainstream main roster fans probably aren't going to know who Tatum Paxley is. Right? But she earned it. She's gone up the ladder. She's done what she needed to do. She's one of the most popular characters on TV, on the show. And I'm not even upset at the turn. Anyone who knows wrestling knew where this story was going to play out. Where I'm upset is that you gave Tatum the title, not really a good run followed, and then you have her lose the title as a result of the turn, when it would have made just as much sense to have her maybe luck into retaining the title. And as she's getting up waiting to celebrate with her friends, or her so-called friends, then Izzi then turned on her, right? It would have made just as much sense, if not more sense, to have Izzi fight Tatum for the title. Now, my hope is maybe the plan is Tatum's about to go up and tag team with Lyra. That's the only thing that I could see that would definitely make this a benefit to me, is my two favorite women on the roster teaming together. Lyra. I haven't talked about Lyra in forever, man. But Lyra's still up there. She's the GOAT, bruh. She's the GOAT. She's the next big thing. I'm still going to ride on that train. And pairing her with Tatum would be really cool for the main roster. I don't think Tatum's getting caught up, though. I think they're going to debut her some friends for Deadline. And Izzi and Tatum, it'll be a triple threat with the Culling, Izzi, Nico, and Sean Spears. And two guys will team with Izzi. I'm hearing rumors of The Righteous, if you guys know ROH, or AEW The Righteous, y'all know them, or maybe some other new debuting guys that show up. I think it would be interesting if Shiloh Hill was part of that, because Shiloh Hill's sort of dark web conspiracy type gimmick what could play well with a Tatum Paxley type gimmick. And so we'll see where that leads. I don't understand, like, because JC doesn't need this, first off. This doesn't put Tatum over. This doesn't put Izzi over. And so the question is who gets over? Like, what does this decision actually set up? And so there's that. As we go forth and deep, we're going to have to change this up a little bit because we are a little bit deeper into the week. I will say this, the Patriots look very good. We can do Patriot Corner real quick. Patriots looked really good. Still look really good. We got the Bengals this week. It should be an easy week with no Jamar Chase or Trey Hendrickson. Rumor Burrow may be playing. We'll see. But the Patriots are looking really good, right? And it was a little bit of a struggle against the Jets on Thursday. Last week, it's been about a week since that game. It was a little bit of a struggle to start the game, but ultimately the Patriots did what they had to do. They won the game. We're 9-2. Pat Mahomes, you disappointed me. I really needed you to beat the Broncos, and I really need you to beat the Colts this week, so that the Patriots can get the 1 seed. Excuse me. Outside of all that other stuff there, the Bills looked good against the Buccaneers. I mean, the Cowboys, I'm going to be honest with you, Monday night, they looked really good. I know they're playing the Raiders. But here's the thing. They're playing an NFL caliber football team, right? They're all NFL players, right? This is the top of the top. I don't care, right? It would be one thing if it was like 8th grade versus, 12th grade. But, like, these are NFL-level caliber players. They're all top of the top, right? Top 1% to ever play the sport, right? And, yeah, so I don't buy this, oh, the Patriots had an easy schedule, or, oh, the Cowboys play the Raiders. The Cowboys looked really good on Monday. They looked really good. And so we'll see where that leads. Where that will lead us now is to go into our predictions. So we got the Bills and the Texans going on as we speak. My prediction is the Bills, right? That has always been my prediction. And so we'll keep that going. Game just started like 30 minutes ago. So we're fine. Pittsburgh, Chicago. I'm going Chicago. Chicago's a scary team, and I told you to watch out for them. Patriots, Bengals, we're going Patriots. Lions, Giants, I'm going Lions. Packers, Vikings, I'm going the Packers. Seahawks, Titans, I'm going Seahawks. Colts, Chiefs. I'm going Chiefs against my better judgment because I really need the Chiefs to win this game. Jets, Baltimore, I'm going Baltimore. Cleveland versus the Raiders might be the worst game ever, and it's in a 405 spot. We're going Raiders. Jags, Cardinals, we're going Jaguars. Eagles, Cowboys. In Dallas, this might be my upset pick of the week. I'm going Dallas. Eagles offense sucks, bro. It is absolutely atrocious how bad that offense is. And my dad, being an Eagles fan, will be like, oh, man, you're just a hater. No. Your offense sucks. Eagle fans be like, oh, but we got a top D. Your offense sucks. You can't put up points. It's atrocious how bad that team is on the offensive side of the ball. And I think Dallas is hitting their stride. I'm picking Dallas. Falcons, Saints, I'm picking the Falcons. Bucks, Rams, I'm picking the Rams. I think the Rams might be the best team in the league, to be honest. And then we got Monday Night Football. My hometown Carolina Panthers. Not my team, but my hometown Carolina Panthers. Head on over to Levi Stadium in good old Santa Clara, California, to watch the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm picking the Panthers. I am picking the Panthers. I'm riding this train with the Panthers. I think the Panthers win this week. Hope and pray that the Buccaneers lose to the Rams Sunday. And if that happens, I think they are tied with the Buccaneers for the division. And I think that's going to happen. Yeah, the Bucks. If the Bucks lose this week, they'll fall to 6-5, and with Carolina winning, they'll move to 7-5. I think that'll put Carolina. So Carolina hasn't had their bye week yet. I think that's actually next week. I lied. It's week. It's the week of the 7th, December 7th. I think so. They got a week 14 bye, just like the Patriots. That sucks. But yeah, the Panthers are scary, man. I think if that team gets on a roll, Panthers may. I'm not saying the Panthers are going to the Super Bowl, but I am saying they're going to win this game and they're going to beat the 49ers on Monday night. So those are my picks for this week. Let's go into everyone's favorite part of the show, and that is the questions from the Discord. We got some questions from last week's episode that I apparently missed because I can't read. that I was supposed to answer from B-Master. And so those are the first two questions here. And so that's, do you believe the theory that the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was actually a show about them being pedophiles? I don't know if I could say that word on YouTube, but anyway, about them being a bunch of Jeffrey Epsteins and that they were being covered up by April. No, I don't. This, first off, when he asked the question, I was like, is this really a theory about the show? Now, I've never really got into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles all that much. I know, shocking, right? I never really cared about the comics or the cartoons. You know, I watched some of the movies that have come out from Nickelodeon, but I just never really was into this type of stuff. And so I don't know all the lore and all of that stuff, right? But this, my initial response is this sounds like some type of Pizzagate QAnon type theory. Like, absolutely not. I do not believe this whatsoever about this show. Absolutely not. His next one was, what is, in your opinion, what is more scary, the ocean or Australia? The ocean. There's like 90% of the ocean that we haven't even discovered, right? The ocean is more vast than outer space. I think what I'm about to say is accurate. Fact check me just in case. We've discovered more about the solar system and outer space than we have about the ocean. I mean, the farthest we've ever gotten is the Marianas Trench, which is about 36,000 feet below sea level. And for those who can't do math, that's 7 miles below the surface of the earth, and that's as far as we have gone down. And there's still 90% more unexplored. Absolutely, the ocean is absolutely scary. There's a reason why in these ancient myths that the water was seen as a place of chaos, because it's really unexplorable. Yeah, without a doubt, I'm going to have to, without a doubt, say the ocean on this one. Like, and then, so I answered it in the Discord, and so he kept going on. It's like, so you'd live in Australia where everything could kill you. And I said, yeah, because at least in Australia, they got pretty girls. They got beaches. They got good food. From what I heard, I've never been. I would like to go to Australia, without a doubt. Yeah, I would definitely go to Australia and face excuse me, giant snakes or spiders and all of that versus going in the ocean, without a doubt. Excuse me. Next question, in your opinion, who had the best face or heel turn? Essentially, who had the best turn? And he said ever, so of all time. So, do we ever consider a baby face turn to be good? I don't remember off the top of... Because typically what I would do in this situation is give a best face turn and best heel turn. There is not a single baby face turn that's coming to my mind right now that I would say this was the most memorable or the best, right? So what makes a good turn? To me, it's the shock factor, right? And so for that reason, the best heel turn of all time is Hulk Hogan. Right behind it, not in that the run. So Hogan had the ability to not only have a shocking heel turn, but to actually have a run that follows with it that was actually pretty dominant. Right behind it, I would put John Cena's heel turn. And it's not because the heel turn we just got from John Cena back in February was all that good of a run. But the shock factor, the mere shock of John Cena actually turning heel in his final year when this could have been a year all about him, right? That shock is the reason I would put Cena number 2. You know, B-Master mentioned Roman. What about Roman's heel turn? And to that I would say, Roman had a good turn, and he had a good run that followed the turn. But the turn itself wasn't all that shocking. It wasn't all that, like, surprising. I mean, there was definitely some shock to it. But to me, it doesn't outrank Hogan. It doesn't outrank Cena. You know, you have guys like, what was it, Sergeant Slaughter, who joined Sheik, right? He joined the Caliphate or whatever they were called at the time, and became an evil. Like, that was a shocking turn. I wasn't alive during it, but that's still a shocking turn in the midst of, what was it, Desert Storm, right? And you had the pro-American soldier character turning and joining the evil foreigner faction. That was because of the shock, because of the story. To me, that is what makes that a better turn than something like Roman, which Roman had a better long-term feud. Like the Bloodline saga definitely will go down to be the best storyline of all time, in my opinion. But I don't think the turn itself was all that surprising. Were shocking, and so I have to take some points off from Roman. All right. Moving on to the next question. Do you need to be a world champion to be considered an all-time great? No. I don't think you need to be a world champion to be considered great, right? Just like, you know, Jim Kelly was never a Super Bowl champion playing for the Bills, but he was a pretty good, he will be remembered as a Hall of Famer, right? Randall Cunningham never won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, Vikings, Cowboys, or Ravens, right? He spent most of his time, though, in Philly. Like, Randall Cunningham never won a Super Bowl, never went to a Super Bowl, right? Still an all-time great when it comes to NFL quarterbacks, especially in the 80s, especially when it comes down to, like, when there's this conversation that, like, Pat Mahomes is the best black quarterback of all time. I'm going to have to differ with you. I'm going to have to say, well, let's pause the brakes on that for a minute. Pat Mahomes is great, but the ability for him to even do what he's doing is built on the backs of guys like Randall Cunningham and Michael Vick. And the dude for Washington, I can't think of his name right now, who actually won a Super Bowl, the first black quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl, right? On guys like, Warren Moon, right? And so Mahomes is great. Don't hear me say that. But I don't know if I would consider Mahomes like the most impactful or the greatest black quarterback of all time. I don't know if I'm willing to do that. Donovan McNabb is up there for me, right? Donovan McNabb is an all-time great. Never won the Super Bowl, right? Michael Vick, even to me, is an all-time great quarterback, right? And so when it comes to wrestling, I think championships are even less important in wrestling when championships aren't really necessarily earned in between the ropes. They're earned in, are you willing to do the job? Are you willing to do what we ask you backstage? Are you willing to get better at your craft? Can you put on a good show, right? I think there's a lot more to the wrestling business than can you be an athlete? Are you winning championships? So, no, I don't think you have to be a world champion to be considered an all-time great. You have the ability. This one's a tough question. Kara asked this one. You have the ability to bring back any intellectual who has ever graced this planet. You have the ability to bring back one of them for one day to sit under their learning tree. Who is that person? And there's a lot of good answers that you could ask this question and answer this question about. And ultimately, my answer is going to be probably not all that surprising, but some of y'all may not have ever heard of this dude before. His name is Jonathan Edwards. I believe Jonathan Edwards is the greatest public speaker, possibly the greatest thinker to ever exist on the planet. Now, who is Jonathan Edwards? Jonathan Edwards was a Puritan preacher. Depending on where you went to school, when you went to school, I know I studied it in high school. One of his sermons, or a part of one of his sermons, was in my literature, my what was it? Language Arts English 2, I think it was. So my sophomore year of high school, we read his sermon, "Sinners in the Hand of an Angry God," which sounds like it's pretty fire and brimstone, which it is. Puritans were known for that. But one of the greatest literary works ever spoken. They got to understand it was a sermon, so he wrote it first, right? And so his works of art, or his of the way he thought, the way he rationalized things, he's one of the greatest intellectuals to walk the planet. Many say the smartest man to ever walk the planet. I mean, he was in the early 1700s, and he was contemplating what we would now call psychology or psychiatry, mental health. He was talking about this hundreds of years before it was even known about. Bro was just intelligent. And then in a close second place would be the Apostle Paul, who wrote about 2/3 of what Christians call the New Testament. Because, one, I would love to just spend the day with this man, just to talk life, because he went through it. I mean, this was a man who, excuse me for a second. Sorry. This was a man who was probably in line to become the high priest of Judaism at one point in his life. I don't actually know if that's like family driven, or I believe it was like voted among the community. But he was, self-admitted what he called a Jew of the Jews. He was a Pharisee, which was like the most prestigious political religious party of the time. He was trained and taught by one of the most well-respected Jewish leaders at the time. I think his name was Gamaliel. The Apostle Paul was him. right? This was when he was going by the name Saul, right? He was that dude. We actually first get met to him. When he's holding the coats of Stephen, the first Christian martyr. Paul was that dude who was so zealous for his faith, Judaism at the time, that he was actually persecuting and killing Christians. And this dude goes on, he's traveling up to Damascus. He gets blinded by God himself, like literally blinded, can't see for 3 days, and converts to Christianity, has an experience unlike anyone's ever had since then, and converts, ends up becoming and using that same zeal that he had persecuting Christians to grow the Christian faith. One of the first major Christian missionaries went on 3 major journeys across all of the Middle East, what we would call, what we would call Turkey, what we would call, so Iran, Iraq, those type of countries, Jerusalem, Rome, Italy, Greece, because we saw him in Athens. We saw him at one point, I think it's the farthest west he got was Spain, so he was now into Europe. And this man was just on fire, right? We saw he was arrested. He eventually ends up getting beheaded by Nero. Emperor Nero ends up beheading him while he's imprisoned, awaiting essentially his death sentence. He pens 2/3 of the Christian New Testament, in which he writes one of the most out of context taking verses of all time. He writes to the church in Philippi. Y'all will know the verse, Philippians 4:13. I could do all things through, right? Really used in the sports world all the time. Yeah, he writes this chained to a guard in prison, and he's talking about, in the context of what he was actually writing about, was, hey, in your persecution, what I have learned is that whether I'm rich or poor, blah, blah, all afflicted or strong, all of these things, that I can do all things. I can bear it, all of it. I can persevere through it, right? And so a lot of people are like, he's saying I could do whatever I want. No. He's saying you're going to be persecuted, and you can go through persecution in the hard times, in the good or the bad, because of Christ, not yourself, right? And so his book, the book of Romans, he never went to Rome, ever. Never met anyone in Rome until he got chained up in a Roman prison. Never was able to preach in Rome, but he wrote to the church in Rome. And his letter to the Romans is actually such a deeply educational treatise on how to present an argument, that Harvard Law School uses it as in their education on how to be a lawyer, right? And so he would be number 2. Would be those two gentlemen who are massive giants in the Christian faith. Next question. Kara wrote this. She said, on Monday, Dominic used the Eddie Guerrero steel chair spot. He doesn't do a lot, but he does it often as people in the Indies or AEW use it a lot as well. Do you think the spot is starting to get overused? and is starting to lose its pop value. 100% agree. 100% agree. The Dominic plays into the Eddie spots a lot, whether it's the shoe coming off or grabbing the steel chair and doing that Eddie spot, and people in the Indies do it a lot. People in AEW do it a lot. It's one of those spots that it's sort of, to me, it's similar to like a concerto. Like a concerto doesn't mean anything anymore because it's done all the time, specifically to Adam Copeland. Like anytime you want to write Adam Copeland off, you can guarantee a concerto is being used. But yeah, I definitely think this spot is well overused to where it's no longer meaningful when people do it anymore, right? But I feel like that's a lot of moves in wrestling. I feel like the sweet chin music or the super kick used to mean something. It lost its value because it was overdone. And so anytime a move is people start copying each other's moves and will, just in their normal move set, do a move that's someone's finisher. And so I don't know. It's one of those things that are, it is starting to be used a little too much. All right, Kara gave me a couple categories. Start, bench, cut. First up, root beer, Coke, Pepsi. Well, we're starting Pepsi. We're benching Coke. And we're cutting root beer. Just because out of the cola type drinks, I crave root beer the least. I like good root beer. And if root beer is like the option, like if we're rating root beers, I'll drink it. But out of these three, it's the least I crave. All right, start, bench, cut, mac and cheese, beans, and rice. Now, it depends on the mac and cheese. Right, if this is like, excuse me, if this is baked mac and cheese, that's different than if it's on the stove, white people, craft box mac and cheese, right? So I'm going to take this as baked mac and cheese, right? And at that point, we're starting mac and cheese. We're benching rice because I love me some rice. And I absolutely despise beans. We're cutting beans. And by beans, I'm assuming you mean like baked beans at like a cookout, right? Next, start, bench, cut, music, TV shows, movies. This is difficult. So you would have asked me this when I was a kid. Music would definitely get the start because I loved music. But I'm going to say start TV show, bench movies, cut music, because the only time I'm ever really listening to music now is when I'm in the car driving to work. I'm not much of a music listener outside of that context. And then when it comes to like TV shows and movies, I'd rather watch a show because it's broken into 30-minute or hour-long pieces that at the end of an episode I could turn it off, right? So like a TV show or like just mini movies, right? Or it's a movie broken into episodic, right? And with a TV show, right, you can do 8 hours worth of the show in one movie, right? Or in one season. Say it's an 8-episode season and you do hour-long episodes. You can tell me much more story along 8 hour-long episodes than you can over a 2-hour movie. Because like if your movie's longer than 2-3 hours, people are going to start zooming out. So you got to tell the entire story of a movie in 2 to 3 hours, right? So TV shows are, and as someone who's I'm a storyline guru, right? Like I require good storylines in my shows. So that there's that, right? So start, bench, cut, cookies, cake, ice cream, without a doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, we're starting ice cream. we're binging cookies, and we're cutting cake. I am not a cake person, not a pie person either. Ice cream and cookies are my two favorite. Now, I do like me some chocolate cake, right? I feel like I feel like I'm Gabriel Iglesias, fluffy, right? Chocolate cake. It's a little racist. I'm sorry. But yeah, ice cream without a doubt is my favorite dessert. Outside of banana pudding, but that's not an option. But ice cream without a doubt. And then finally, start, bench, cut, Cheez-Its, popcorn, Doritos. We're starting Cheez-Its. I'll be completely honest with you. We can get rid of the other two. Let's get rid of the other two. I know that's a hot take. I could go without Doritos. I really could. Outside of like the original and the spicy nacho cheese, like I don't care about the sweet chili. I don't care about the Cool Ranch. I mean, I'll eat the Cool Ranch because those come in the little baggy pack, the little value party packs or whatever, right? But there's so many different flavors now of Doritos that I could go without them, right? I'm more of a potato chip anyway fan outside of, I'm not a big corn chip fan, which are what Doritos are, corn chips. I'm more of a potato chip, and I'm more of a literally plain salted, like sea salt potato chip. Maybe salt and vinegar. Like I don't need all the extra flavors, right? Just give me especially because where I grew up in Virginia, I was like 10 minutes from I think it's Route 11 potato chip factory is what it's called. And we used to be able to go and tour the factory, and at the end of the tour, they would give you a basket of freshly fried potato chips, like fresh out the oil, not in the bag, right? So like these were hot. I don't know if you've ever had like hot potato chips. I know Zaxby's, which is a southern restaurant, they used to sell potato chips that were hot, like straight out of the fryer. I wish they still sold them. They were pretty banging good if they were cooked right. But yeah, I'm not a big Doritos fan. I'm not a big corn chip fan. And popcorn, like I don't eat popcorn at the movies. I don't. It's one of those things where like I got to be in a mood for it. And it's really like if any of these options are available. So if I had to rank it would be start Cheez-Its, bench Doritos, cut popcorn. Because if there's chips in the house, we're not eating popcorn. If there's Cheez-Its, we're not eating popcorn. If there's ice cream or any other sweet treat, even if I'm craving something salty, right? Now, let me tell you what's a close competition for Cheez-Its, and those are pretzel sticks. Like, I'm staring at some right now. I don't know if you guys have ever had, it's a company called Dots Home-Style Pretzels. And I'm staring at a bag of Parmesan garlic pretzel twist right now. Boy, these things are so good. Pretzels are a really good thing. Snack food for me. Probably above Cheez-Its, 100%. Next question. We got a lot of questions here. Next question. I like this. Erase one NFL franchise and their history. Who is it? And so y'all know me. I can't just do one. I can't just... Because I got an entire reasoning behind why I'm picking the franchise that I'm picking to erase. So while I'm trying to find my notes on this, I should have had it pulled up already. While I'm trying to find my notes on this, my answer to this question is I'm erasing the Cleveland Browns. Now what I did is I then went and rated and ranked all 32 teams from 1 to 32, with 1 being the most easiest to erase, who I would erase, and that's the Browns, and then 32 being like, we're not touching this, right? And so they're in tiers. So teams 1 through 5 are the go ahead, no one will miss them tier. So, of course, the Browns. Here's why I would erase the Browns. They've already been erased once, right? The Cleveland Browns got erased. They left, technically started a new franchise in Baltimore as the Ravens, right? And then, a couple years later, the Browns come back and they just slap on all the old history. And there's not a lot of history outside of the early championships won in like the 40s and 50s, right? Which weren't even Super Bowls at that point, right? So they're the easiest to go ahead and erase, minimal impact. And so that's what I'm looking for when I'm doing this. I'm not trying to erase a rival. I'm not trying to erase a team I don't like. It's more of, if I erase you, who has the least impact to the history of the NFL? Because that's something that I want to keep intact, right? And so the Browns are gone, number one. Number two, Jacksonville Jaguars, right? No footprint, no Super Bowl, very little cultural weight in American culture, so they're gone. Three, the Texans, for pretty much the same reason, right? No real ripple effect if removed. Number four is the Cardinals. Very little success, as old as a franchise it is. They've moved around enough that erasing them barely changes much of anything. Number five, the LA Chargers. Chronic underachievers. They're the second fiddle in their own city, and they really offer any history that will alter the NFL if removed. Teams 6 through 10 are this would sting a little bit, but the league will survive tier. Number 6, the Detroit Lions, right? One really, really good player in Barry Sanders. No Super Bowl relevance in the Super Bowl era, so they're a little bit easy to erase. The Atlanta Falcons will be number 7. Not much of a cultural pillar. Outside of 28-3, they don't really have an iconic moment in their franchise history, so they're easy to erase. Number 8, the Tennessee Titans. No real foundational league identity, and so you can easily get rid of them. Number 9 is the Carolina Panthers. No real essentiality. They're not really essential to NFL history. And there's not a lot of history to remove, as they're one of the newer teams in the league. Number 10 is the Minnesota Vikings. A little bit painful. There's some history here. Most of it is heartbreak. Without much lasting impact on the NFL. Teams 11 through 16 are now you're starting to hurt tier, right? 11, the Cincinnati Bengals. Some big players like Chad Ochocinco, Anthony Munoz. Not a lot of history, so they're still removable. But this one would hurt a little bit, right? Number 12 hurts a little bit, and that's the Buffalo Bills, right? As far as, the only team to go to 4 straight Super Bowls in a row, only team to lose 4 straight Super Bowls in a row. They got some history. They got, OJ and Jim Kelly and guys like that. And so that'll hurt a little bit, but it doesn't obliterate the NFL history as some of these other teams would. 13 is the Jets. Outside of Joe Namath, not much history that's important. And it actually would probably help lower the Jets fans' blood pressure. Number 14 is the LA Rams. They got some important history, some moves. You've been to a couple Super Bowls since 2000 and even before then, but you're not really a defining team in in the NFL. Number, what do we have? 15 is the New Orleans Saints. There was a post-Hurricane Katrina cultural movement in New Orleans, but outside of that era of Drew Brees, New Orleans probably is very, if you remove, like 04, 05 to like early 2010s, if you remove that era from the Saints, they're probably in the top 5 of easiest to remove. And so, but that era was just super important culturally. They won a Super Bowl. So there's that. Number 16 is the Seahawks. Outside of the Legion of Boom era, and I like the Shaun Alexander era. He was a really good player. But again, not a lot of history removed in the first half of the league. 17 through 22 is now you're going to start messing with the timeline. Now you're doing some drastic changing to the league if you remove this team. And so that begins with number 17 being the Kansas City Chiefs. You remove the Mahomes era from the NFL and you really lose a lot of important, when we look back in 50 years on this era, you're going to talk about Mahomes. So it is an important era for certain. And so outside of that, though, that's why are they 17 and not higher? Because outside of that, you don't really have much of a ripple effect, right? Number 18 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they do have 2 Super Bowls, including the one Brady helped them win. Very good defense in the early 2000s. Very difficult to erase, though, because now you're starting to erase teams that have cultural impact in Super Bowls, right? Including number 19, the Denver Broncos. You have John Elway, you have Peyton Manning. There's some cultural impact on the NFL with the Broncos. Number 20 is the Miami Dolphins. Removing the Dolphins is removing Dan Marino. And it's removing the greatest season of all time with the undefeated season, right? 72? Where they went undefeated, won every single game, right? And up until now, that's stuck, and that's been the one bragging point that Dolphin fans could hang on to. In the NFL, that's sort of like their legend in football, right? And so you remove that, you remove a piece of NFL history, right? 21 is the Eagles. Big fan base, a lot of iconic moments. The Philly Special, the Tush Push. They've won 2 Super Bowls now. Early 2000s, they were dominant in the NFC East, NFC. So removing them removes a lot of early, a lot of the 21st century history. But even in the 80s and the 90s, they had some decent teams, right? Reggie White, guys like that on the team. And so Vince Papale, with the Scabs, very iconic moments. And so that there's some destabilizing that comes when you remove Philly, right? 22 is the Ravens, which is kind of shocking considering that they're a newer team in the league, but they've won a Super Bowl, maybe 2. I think they won one with Flacco, and then they had the Ray Lewis one early. Ed Reed, very, very good defense in the early 2000s. You got Lamar now. Yeah, this is a team that would be very difficult from a history standpoint to remove. Right? Now you're getting into like what we're going to call borderline sacred. And that's 23 through 27. So 23 is the Giants. They got 4 Super Bowls. Manning beats Brady twice. There's a lot of lore with the Giants, even though it's not like the greatest team and they're not the best right now. There's some lore with the Giants. Chicago Bears are 24. The 85 Bears alone probably make them untouchable. They're one of the oldest teams in league history, so you definitely got to keep the Bears here. 25, the Commanders, historically known as the Redskins. Multiple championships, huge historical presence. And from the 80s and 90s, we're probably one of the big cultural major teams in the NFL, right? 26, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, what can you say, right? Dynasty of the 70s, massive cultural footprint, 6 Super Bowls, erasing the Steelers erases a lot of history. 27 is the Raiders. Iconic brand, a renegade type culture, Al Davis, John Madden, John Gruden, right? The league changes without the Raiders being there historically, right? And then you get the final tier of teams, and this is the don't you dare touch these teams, right? So 28 is the Indianapolis Colts. You have Manning, Johnny Unitas, some pillars of multiple eras. Not the amount of success that you would like to see, but there definitely were like big cultural like impact, right, on the league. 29 is the San Francisco 49ers. What was it? The 80s were like they were like the big dynasty of the 80s. Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Steve Young. You got some NFL royalty there with San Fran, so they're 29. 30 is the Dallas Cowboys. They are America's team, and removing the Cowboys erases like half of the NFL culture, right? How about them Cowboys? Everyone's favorite team to hate. You can't remove the Cowboys from history. 31 is the New England Patriots. The Brady-Belichick dynasty quite literally rewrote history. I will say this. You take those 20 years out, the Brady-Belichick years, which was about 18 years, like from 01 to 19, you take those years out of league history, and they never happen. The Patriots are probably the worst dynasty ever, right? No real success outside of those 20 years. But in those 20 years, 6 Super Bowls, 6 Super Bowl victories, 18, I believe, division champions. Just an unbeatable dynasty, right? And then the hardest team, the team is the most untouchable, is the Green Bay Packers. I mean, the championship trophy is literally named after Vince Lombardi. They're community owned. It's the foundation of the league. You're literally erasing the league if you erase the Packers, right? And so, I had to do much more than what was asked for. So, there's that. Next question. If you met the younger you, what would you tell him? What advice would you give him? It's actually quite funny that you mentioned this. Because I actually, many of you know that I have a hobby of writing music or raps. And I actually wrote a song about this very topic and this was several years ago that I wrote this. And so rather than giving a long, drawn-out answer, I think I'll just post and play that song right about now. So I was thinking the other day, like if I could write down some advice for my past self, what would I write? What would I have liked to know back then? What would I really like to know? Well, I guess this is it. Yeah. Let's take it back to 2015. Newly graduated, just turned 18. Got that new job, working down as XBs. You working hard, getting money, put it towards living your dreams. Just a heads up, they gon' offer you management. But your dream of teaching, they gon' make you abandon it. The thought of it sounds good, I'm telling you don't chase it. Cause they gon' give it to you, then they gonna take it. After all that extra work, they threw you in the trash. Even after they put the company on your back and work your ass off for people who don't even care, who won't even notice that you are not there. Just work your 4 years till you graduate college. Get a job teaching to spread some of your knowledge. Don't put the money over living out your dreams, cause in the end the money won't even mean a thing. What's crazy is at this time in my life, man, I was chasing things that in the end won't mean nothing. And in that, I lost myself. I can come to the conclusion Solomon did in Ecclesiastes. It's all meaningless, vanity. But it's crazy how we chase these things. Yeah. You threw your faith away, boy, that was real quick. Makes me wonder if you ever really had it. You believe there's a God, but that is not faith. It's believing he will accomplish everything he says. You stopped reading, which made you stop praying. That's dangerous, cause the devil's always praying. Started cussing, you thought it would make you cool, but in the end, it only showed you were a fool. You abandoned the church, why'd you do that for? Cause you didn't like the way you felt beyond them doors. You felt everyone was judging and nobody cared. So you'd rather not even step a foot in there. In the end, you never stopped believing in God. You just replaced the real one for some fake facade. But you can go back, Yeshua will show you grace. Repenting and believing was all it takes. What's crazy though, man, is that there are a lot of people who refuse to go to church because of the people in the church. And while that is a problem of people judging out people who don't act like them, you don't go to church to please the people in the church. You go there to worship God, man. And that's something I had to learn. Yeah. All right. Next question. Do you prefer a nice, good old-fashioned cookout? So by that, he's talking about burgers and hot dogs on the grill, right? Or do you want barbecue? So when he's talking about this, he's talking about your pulled pork, your brisket, your ribs. It's barbecue all day, right? It's barbecue all day. I'm not a big fan of, like, throwing down on a charbroil grill, right? I'm not a big, I don't like grilled chicken. I don't like grilled hot dogs, I'm gonna be honest with you. I prefer okay, hot dogs are fine. But I'm more so like smoked meats anyway, because I don't like the burnt charcoal flavor of a charbroiled type situation going on there, right? It's part of the reason why I don't like Burger King is because they charbroil their burgers. I prefer them cooked. But when you're comparing, like, barbecue is, I'm a North Carolinian. Barbecue is life down here, right? And it's the whole like, I've gone over this before on this show. Like, barbecue is literally life, bro. Yeah, I want barbecue all day. I want the ribs. I want the brisket. I want the pulled pork. I'm not a chicken fan, so you can keep that Alabama shit down there. Especially with that white sauce that they use in Alabama. That's gross, bro. But, yeah, barbecue all day. Next question. Do you prefer new Linkin Park or the original Linkin Park? The original, of course. However, I don't hate Emily Armstrong. I think that's her name. I know her name's Emily. I think it's Armstrong. Whatever her name is, I don't hate her as the lead singer. I've had this conversation with a couple Linkin Park fans. And we all sort of have come up with the same, Emily Armstrong. We all come up with the same sort of answer. We don't hate it. It's not Chester, but we don't hate it. And it's probably the best because there's really no one right now that we know of that has the vocal range Chester had. Guys, as someone who is trying to sing like Chester Bennington, his vocal range is absolutely insane how he hits some of these notes, right? So while I do prefer the original over current Linkin Park, I don't hate current Linkin Park. And then final question. If you could give an NFL team a championship that wouldn't have a snowball chance in hell without your help, what team are you picking? Because of the caveat of wouldn't typically have a chance, I'm not going to pick the Lions. If he didn't have that caveat, I would have picked the Lions. Because of the caveat, I think we have to give it to the Browns. Right? For some of the same reasons I would erase them. Like, this team's never making a Super Bowl, bro. This team is just ass from the top of the organization all the way down. They're not making a Super Bowl. And so they're going to need my help to even get a championship. So we will pick the Cleveland Browns. But that is this week's episode of the Slapping Meat Community Show. If you have more questions, join the Discord. Post them there. I will see you guys on Monday. We'll be recording Monday. The next episode. I will see you then. And I hope you all have a great weekend. Great rest of your week. See you on the next episode.